program. And as you all have witnessed, we have been introduced with many new perspectives that are quite new to many of us. Now, our resource persons have introduced us many new perspectives in the trends. Now, when they talked about the trends in English research, and continuing the same trend, today, we have a stalwart with us. He is Dr. G. Baskaran, professor, Gandhigram Rural Institute, deemed to be University, Dindikal. I think people from Tamil Nadu need no introduction about Professor. You all might be knowing about Professor. And for others, no, I have to speak a few words about Professor. And Sir has 10 books. He has authored 10 books, and he has contributed more than 50 um, articles for edited volumes, edited books, book chapters that he has contributed, and he has authored more than 150 publications, both national and international. And he is the member syndicate of Alagappa University, the syndicate member of Alagappa University, and his research areas are Indian writing and Commonwealth literature. And today, Sir will be talking to us on beyond gender. He'll be talking to us on the issues pertaining to the gender and the conceptualization of gender in literary works. Now, as many of us might have listened to his speeches oftentimes, his speech or his lecture will always be focusing, very much focused and well organized. Uh, ma'am, ma'am, please mute your mic. Mutulega, ma'am. Thank you. People, many of us from Tamil Nadu, know we have the experience of listening to Professor, and we all know that his lectures are such information-packed and well organized. And today also, I think that I sincerely hope and we can expect the same kind of information and new perspective that he will give us regarding the gender issues. Welcome, sir. On behalf of the department, on behalf of the organizing committee, I welcome you, sir, to deliver the lecture. Welcome, sir.
Yeah. So, namaskar and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. And I should thank Professor Padmanabhan for giving a warm welcome in the introduction. And it is my duty, to here record, my pleasure and wishes, to all those, working there in Bharatiyar University Department of English. A special thanks to the team, that who has been, doing, a fine job. I know, nearly 2.5 decades of my relations, with that department, and it is growing like, a big institute, and particularly, English department. Its contribution to the academia, is very strong, and I know that it still, is going very strong, and my best wishes for all those behind the scene. And special thanks to all those viewers, and special because after having, sumptuous lunch, that you are all watching me, and how, that this will create an impact, and it is purely, about the ongoing research, in the 21st century, right? See, my cup of tea is Indian writing in English, and I actually, upon guiding my children, scholarly children for their highest, degree, that is PhD, I came to understand so many things from their research, and still, I'm learning a lot, from my own scholars. And at Gandhigram, the things are happening, in a different way. And yes, that too, in Bharatiyar University campus also. And every institute, nowadays, they are programming, new ventures, and they are getting into different research areas. Especially, that medicinal narratives are coming, and food-related narratives are coming. Actually, it is a breakup, right? So 3.5 decades or 4 decades back, what was in existence, not alive today. Simply, because things have changed and people have changed. Scholars are, changing. And the writers, of course, that I should record here, that writers, they are actually very cautious and conscious, right? Both cautious and conscious about, giving, the issues. And they are bringing, the messages also, by the writings. So what type of message? And that is actually, the discussion today, right? So I'm well connected and no worry, even if it breaks, that immediately, maybe, 2 or 3 seconds, that it will pick up and my voice will be, audible, I believe. And finally, arranged, the team, behind this technology team. And David, is taking care of it. And the dialogue, now, right? It is morely, dialogue, right? So my way of, delivering, is such, right? So I titled like, that going beyond, right? Beyond gender, what is happening now, right? So that the present day research is, something towards moving towards, not invisible, right? Visible, right? Visible or unsayable, right? Unsayable things people have in their heart and mind, but they don't know how to present. Present in the sense, not that of, their inability, no. But what society, reacts, how society reacts. That's why, that they are a bit hesitant. But in the 21st century, that people are opening their eyes and mind and heart, and things are coming, that quick. 2 decades back, when the Thani staged, the place, everyone was shocked upon looking at, the people living there, people living there in relationships. If it is a man and woman, that we don't take, serious. If it is a man living with other man, right? Things are different, right? So that was in existence, quite a number of decades, quite a number of centuries. So when you turn, the history and you go back, to the eras, that of 500 years or 400 years or 1,000 years, like what you find, is recorded, right? Recorded. Such a relationship was in existence. After that, people forgotten. And when things are coming alive again, second appearance, the gay relationships or lesbian relationships, or children choosing, the lifestyle of their own, living together like for a while and then misunderstanding or some issues, crisis. As a result, that they start coming out of that situation. Okay. When this is actually the case, and writers, that either by experiencing, the issue. So one is, I say, that is female genital mutilation or cutting, FGM, right? So that is going on now. That is also a new venture. Your question, that I am able to cast, that in your mind, it is coming. So when gay relationship, was discussed, was performed, was staged, such a question came. In India, is it alive? Is it possible? But today, that after 2 decades, the present century, the present day, that you come across people living together, right? By then, the Thani was criticized. Society, that is damaged. I mean, society is getting into a new system. And why, this guy is, doing like innumerable questions, that are coming to your mind as a result. Same way, we are also looking at this concept, right? Female genital mutilation / cutting or FGM, right? Now, let me quote, something from a Peruvian scientist, a medical doctor, who turned after that, a novelist. Only one novel, that she has written. That is The Evolution of Paulina, a novel, a novel of sociology. It is subtitled, like. She was born in the year 1862, lived up to 1909. That means, the early 20th century, that she passed away. But even now, that particular text, is seriously, viewed. So I am quoting, from the text, the authority to speak about things outside one's feminine domain, right? See, we have our own spaces, my space. And today, I'm in a cabin, living at home, and I'm delivering, lecture. And you are all, in different spaces, living alone, listening me, right? This is what actually happening. COVID, has completely, changed our style of, a situation, classroom situation, a hall situation, a seminar situation. All those replaced now, completely gone, right? So technology is supporting us, right? Even though I know that we are, divided, right? Living away, that is 500 kilometers, 600 kilometers, right? Things are different, happening quick, it is very, very close. Holding your Android and then listening me, like, right? And she talked about, the authority to speak about things outside one's feminine domain, and in the process, writes the unsayable and disrupts established hierarchies of social values around gender. Right? Even now, that in Indian context, the balance, is yet to reach, between a man and woman. 2 days back, bit of, yes, filling the gap, there in army, Indian army. Right? Earlier, women were serving there in hospitals, taking care of wounded soldiers. And slowly they got into the technological side, technical side, operating systems, right? And today, that another change they have taken to one step, that ahead of earlier placements. Government has sanctioned, something like, in order to make them, equal like. So this is happening, and yes, writers absorbing these things upon, they start writing about it. It is coming as a message, in narrative form. And research, is something, directing towards it, claiming rights, equality, gender equality, like earlier it was gender, right? When Dattani was speaking, he was speaking something about gender relationships. And now, it is going away, right? Situating, oneself, right? That is something, significant. Think of women who achieve greater heights in their lives, in India. The first medical doctor, right? Surgeon, like, think of them, right? Either, they stood alone in academia, or they walked through the foot of hierarchy, right? Some push, right? But those days, that they were actually, questioning their placement, there in educational systems, were questioned. Getting into education, was that much, criticized. Women's education, like. But now our thinking has changed, right? That only by educating themselves, them, this gender equality, can be reached. A right can be, provided. Or the balance, can be achieved. So these are all, that are narrated well, here in literary texts. So we are moving towards, such a situation, right? Earlier, that 4 decades back, what is that? A critical study of a novelist, right? After that, we started introducing, the approaches. And after that, that we started thinking of, something literary theories and post-colonial, postmodern structuralists and other Bharatian and Levi-Strauss, like, that people came and yes, they also, supported our interpretation, right? Perception, is changing, right? Day by day, it is changing. So when you go beyond, this, new things, new avenues, are actually, available. Simone Bauer, right? Who climbed, one is not born, but rather becomes, a woman, right? And that social discrimination produces in women moral and intellectual effects so profound that they appear caused by nature. Right? See, new thinkers, new intellectuals, are coming, right, with their ideas. See, we read, narratives. We need narratives. Suppose, you read, something like, a postmodern text. So you get an idea about, postmodernism. You take a text. When you read, that you come across, something, postmodern concepts. No, what actually, these concepts, right? You need, something, a support like. Other day, that, yes, Professor Ravichandran, my close friend, might have given a lecture on postmodernism, or might have listened, you people, like an authority like, that he has done his research on postmodernism as a result, right? And he's actually, in a way of presenting, is you don't get, answers for any question, right? You don't get answers. But you can develop, so many answers like that is actually, the present day situation. Research, is now, in this situation, right? So you are giving, others rooms, for further discussion. And gender is thought to be, alterable by political and social reform. That would ultimately bring an end to women's subordination, right? So we'll have to view it, from the side of, the society as well as from the side of, the politics, right? The rulers, right? Then only, that this possibility of, merging the gap, right? 30%, 70%, like, that will be, easily, made us, something, a balance. And subordination, goes out naturally. Sometimes the distinction, is said to reflect, replicate. See, the moment, you hear people, right, you develop, your thought. This is something, first reflection. I suggest, that you more depend on reflections, right? See, the way, someone, you're reacting to your ideas. Someone is, reacting to our ideas, either in the form of question or appreciation or simply, listening and then pass on, a smile like. Okay. The distinction is said to reflect or replicate androcentric oppositions. They have been used to justify women's oppression, such as mind, body, culture, nature, and reason, and then emotion. One term, is always superior to the other, right? So this is the way, that we develop, this distinction, difference, so far, right? A term is always, superior to the other. You say, mind is important, doesn't mean, body is not important. You say, that culture, is something, very, very significant, and nature is not so. And now, that people are actually, moving towards, this nature. All those people, that the Northeastern writers, right? So that area is actually now a real, space for, research. A real space, that you can consider now, is Northeast writings. So either you find, right, in KRS Iyengar's, Srinivas Iyengar's Indian writing in English, Sterling Publishers. So that was actually the Bible for Indian writing in English, right, those days, when I did my research like. And in M.K. Naik's 2 books, History of Indian Literature, an excellent book, You don't find, much on this Northeastern writings, Northeast writers. in the revised edition of Indian writing in English by K.R.S. Iyengar, who with his daughter brought out the revised volume where you have one or two sentences like M.K. Naik added two authors, and that's all nothing else. But things are really coming now about the topology that they write, the geography, the environment, nature, it is rich, that is comparing the other domains of India. Northeastern writers, they are writing about much about the environment there. And Brahmaputra is in spate now. You all know that Assam is in flood. Bihar is in flood. Yes, they write about it. Gagra in spate like. Gagra in spate like. See, and this joining the northeastern writers to the mainstream right? Are they lagging behind? This question comes. Are they lagging behind? Are they actually staying away from the mainstream? Now, who designed the mainstream, and who actually is actually keeping northeastern writers in a way? Actually, the Assamese, came forward, first. Assamese. After that, the 8 states, the 7 states, joined. Recently, that there are people, coming a lot, and you do have, something in mind, that is now FGM, right? The female genital mutilation, is coming first, from that side. Right. Earlier, the other writers, from Middle East, they started writing about this. Alice Walker has written, something about it. Either they experienced or they listen people, right? They listen those who have undergone, this FGM, right? Cutting. So I'm adding here, one more interesting concept, it is trauma, right? So trauma theory, is trauma studies, trauma studies, there. So earlier, that oppression, suppression, like. But what actually, I told you, that mind and body, which is superior and which one, is inferior one, like. So body is actually, first getting, the pain. And it takes, to the mind. But the pain there, in the mind, is actually, strongly registering it. And whenever, that you cross, the space, where you have undergone, this pain, it says, yes, it supplies, that again. Pride is also, involved here, okay? Pride is also involved here. So, one term is always superior, to the other. And the devalued term, is usually associated with woman. This is actually, there in a book, Man of Reason, 1993, it was published. Genevieve, Lloyd, by. So male, female differences, who is superior and who is, inferior, that question, that we will have to set right, right. So male, female differences were not merely genital, but in fact extended to every fiber of their being. You look at it, you look at them in a way, that actually, is making, the difference. Thus, each body possessed and nurtured its own distinctive destiny, intellectual and physical strength for men and motherhood for women. Are they not, are women not, intellectuals? And their physical strength, is also there. Because they haven't been, tuned like or toned like in that way. So right from childhood, that they were given education. Right from childhood. Men weren't given, men weren't educated. So their education, was bit more, right, comparatively. In order to behave, in the future, right? The subdued, right from the beginning, that you should not do like this. You should not take part, in this physical activity. So your space, is something, there in the corner. They were educated. They were educated. They were strengthened, in such a way, negative ways. Men were, educated differently. Though they were given, minimum small amount of education, like, right, they take, the upper hand, like. Actually, this was, dealt in V. Gita's book, Gender, which was published in 2002. So writings, are such, right. So you take, for example, Chitravanati Divakarana's writings, that is clothes, right. The girl, is actually, educated to be very orthodox, right. To wear, half sarees. To be, moral, highly moralistic, right. But what happened, there in the narration, the narrator, actually the novelist, Banerjee, has taken her to a different geographical location. So now so many things, that you can think like, right. Jharkhand, right, one vice chancellor, is now appointed recently, right. Munz, right. Munz became, vice chancellor, and so many questions. And what actually, the interview, that she has given. So don't look at me from the ghetto's perspective. See that? Still, there, the imbalance. That's why, that is coming, right? Don't look at me, with my color. Don't look at me with the tribal ideology. She is actually, the tribal. Bihari. See that, what happens? She asked for one, there in the early childhood, in the school. She was not given. She was discouraged. A math teacher discouraged. Open interview, that is. And yes, it becomes, a story. It becomes, a story, right? And it becomes, what is it called? A motivation to others, belonging to the same tribal community, right? So he has grown to the level of, a vice chancellor now. This is what actually, that message, it is coming through writing. And here, you can also keep in mind, right? Such people alone can, write, proper. So you may be tempted to ask a question, whether I am eligible, to speak on, something, beyond gender, like. So I read and I listen people and I am speaking. Right? But it would be apt, they speak, like those who are related to that concept, if they speak, they speak, 100%, perfect. Maybe few lapses you come across, in mind. Okay. Maybe. See, and the Dalit writing, is also like, right. You can take it, right. The tribal situation or indigenous situation, they come and then speak and then they do it, like. So this is what, the research is now progressing towards, right. One fine book, that is, it was published in 2006 in Analyzing Oppression. Historically, terms like oppression clearly refer to political tyranny. Contemporary usage is much less unequivocal. So once, that is historically, is something political tyranny. The contemporary usage, changed. Even history. When I was doing, something history, research on, history, my perception was like, I was looking for, E.V. Lucas, perception. Things have changed, enormously changed. Contemporary usage, history is different. new historicism, has come. Okay. See, in analyzing oppression and rights in your book, so the post 20th century usage of oppression refers to unjust violence. Unjust violence. See the usage, unjust. Violence is unjust. And the economic, social, political, and psychological injustices suffered by a wide variety of social groups. I'm not exempted, you are not exempted, right? That's why, I'm telling, the Northeastern people, right? They face, this oppression, in a different way, right? So think of those people living there, very near to the border. So what we know, that is line of control, right? LOC. We know that to that extreme, but people who are living there, very near to that, every day, that every day, their life is actually, a big question. Their living, is a big question. Northeastern writers, they document, in their narratives, their lifestyle. A woman cannot, walk easily, there in the daylight. I'm telling you, it is not in the night. The oppression comes, not from enemies. Not from enemies, but people, who are actually, securing our life. You understand, that the military forces, right? So they actually documented, such experiences, right? Autobiographies, they write. The Northeastern writers, they're writing, autobiographies. I tell you, tales, from one or two examples, I give. That is, you can understand, these concepts, very easy, right? The two types, right? Feminist theories and queer theories, have also contested the naturalization of sexuality. So there is a slow jump, that I'm getting into the other. Whether characterized as an instinctual urge, a species imperative, the means of procreation, a site of pleasure and desire, or a primitive elemental force, sexuality. Sexuality has been enmeshed in intricate systems of social control, right? Various means of procreation, a site of pleasure and desire, or a primitive elemental force. Yes. This is by Rubin, The Sexual Dilemma, published in the 1993. So gender is both the effect of compulsory heterosexuality and a powerful contributor to belief in a natural heterosexual world and a heterosexual body experience as natural fact. This is by Butler. So a fact of compulsory heterosexuality and a powerful contributor to belief in a natural heterosexual world and a heterosexual body experience as natural fact. So there are some quotation marks here. So for example, it is a natural fact. The heterosexual body experiencing, a natural fact. So the previous term, that is procreation, like. So this is something connected with female biology. Adrian Rich is very apt, here, Adrian Rich, of woman born, right? So female biology has far more radical implications than we have yet come to appreciate. This is by Adrian Rich. Female biology, is such. Now, sexuality, body, and then violence. So unjustified violence, right? Even a male or male rape, reinforced the patriarchal link between male violence and gendered hierarchy. Insofar as it was a crime in which one man treated another man. See that? A man treating other man, right? So now we have come to man living with the man, gay relationships, right? But here, it was a crime in which one man treated another man as though he were a sexually subservient woman. See that? Even a man living with another man, that differences, are coming. And how come, the possibility of, living together, between these two guys, possible? So where one is taking, the role of, a woman. That's why, sexually subservient woman, right? This is by Judith Grant experience. In another book, The Power of Woman by Salma James, who points out the female body is a strange commodity, for it is not a thing. It's not a thing. Very sure, right? It's not a thing. So the ability to labor resides only in a human being whose life is consumed in the process of producing. So ultimately, the female. And you have, something very interesting, the other side of, silence. Silence, is a big concept, right? Right from, Sasi Deshpande, that till to the present situation, silence, is something, doing a very serious job. Or this is actually, a serious research, right? Women were, silenced. But now, it is broken, right? So far, that is now in the present situation, 21st century, in 2020, scene, silencing, is a very tough job. No, you cannot make, everyone, silent. Very difficult. Now, rules have been framed, the laws, that are framed. And it is protecting, everyone. Yes. I have a voice and you have a voice and everyone, is capable of recording, registering, the voices. Right. As a female body is a local for reproduction, it becomes a site of immense concern to the male patriarch. Now you can go to, again, the Northeastern writers, where they are writing, the women undergoing, pain in the hands of, the forces, military forces. Right. So it becomes, a site of immense concern, right? The female body. We have, innumerable narrations, right? More number of narrations. The bodies of women are considered by men as the repository of men's honor. The raping of women, to demonstrate and defeat rival men in patriarchal societies is quite common in many parts of India. I told you, that once it was secret, female genital mutilation was secret. Likewise, this is also, we'll have to look at, this also, something like, but it has been, in existence in many parts of India and other areas of the world. The rape of a woman is, akin to the rape of a community to which, she belongs. When someone, is indulging, like, it is a microcosm, that it damages the entire society. This form of violence is unabashedly public, brazenly sexual, and undeniably, criminal. It has been, normalized. Right. No trauma, is coming. Whoever, undergone, this pain, woman, especially, woman. So these studies, trauma studies explores the impact of trauma in literature and society by analyzing its psychological, rhetorical, and cultural significance. So you have, so many theoreticians who have mastery, over this concept, trauma studies. Many people are. So it's the net, that you get, authentic information about, this. Innumerable books are there, right? So this is something, analyzing its psychological, rhetorical, and cultural significance. Freud, is also coming, I told you. So scholarship analyzes the complex psychological and social factors which influence the self-comprehension of a traumatic experience and how such an experience shapes and is shaped by language. It becomes, there in a language. I mean, there in a narrative you come across. This sort of a trauma, experience, is shaped by a language, an individual's ability to communicate the message in a proper way to the proper destination. Message is, open to all, right? But those who have undergone the same, they come up, in life. Those who haven't, that they understand, oh, this is also, happening like in other part of the country. See, now you understand also, the gap, between the mainland and the Northeast. Mainland, you cannot say, that such a thing, is not happening here. It happens. But here and there, in rare spaces, rare time. But people who are living there in Northeast, hill, right? So many places, that are neglected. Not even, the government commodities, enter. Not even they are supplied, with all things, that we get, here. Lucky, now because COVID, is not creating a serious impact, in Northeast states. Still, they live by nature, right? They live by nature, and the culture, is being, kept for quite a number of decades. The same, without any siftings, without any metamorphosis, like, right? No vast, change, like, okay. Yes, scholarship, that analyzes the complex psychological and social factors that influence the self-comprehension of a traumatic experience and how such an experience shapes and shaped by a language. So Freud and Brewer, they write, I quote here, because this is very much essential, to understand the stories, that we are going to discuss, one or two. It is very easy. We may reverse, the dictum. The dictum, when the cause ceases, the effect ceases. And conclude from these observations that the determining process, that the recollection of it, determining process is nothing but the recollection of the earlier one, right? Continues to operate for years, mind. I told you, body, encounters first, the pain, and it actually takes the pain to the mind, right? And this recollection process, right, determining process continues to operate for years, not indirectly, through a chain of intermediate cause links. Intermediate cause links, that whenever you cross, the space where you undergone, the pain, or someone, who is responsible for it, the pain, the trauma, he or she or they, come, mind actually, says. So, but as a directly releasing cause, just as physical pain that is remembered in waking consciousness still provokes a lacrimal sectarian long after the event. So hysterics suffer mainly from reminiscences. So this is by Freud and Brewer. Now you take, a novel, any trauma novel. Any a trauma novel that demonstrates how a traumatic event disrupts attachments between self and others by challenging fundamental assumptions about moral laws and social relationships that are themselves connected to specific environments. So in a trauma novel, the trauma novel, demonstrates, this how a traumatic event disrupts attachments. And the novel, represents this disruption between the self and the other by carefully describing the place of trauma, because the physical environment offers the opportunity to examine both the personal and cultural histories. So you read Jallianwala Bagh in history texts. You haven't seen, you haven't experienced. As a child, as a scholar, yes. Those who lived, right, by then, but they haven't experienced. This is second category. And those who lived very near and they have seen, experienced. See that? The pain, we are also experiencing. The pain, those who live far away from there haven't experienced, they are also undergoing pain, trauma. With a real traumatic effect, that you can see, there in the people who really, involved in it. And it becomes, a reminiscence, that recollecting, that. Right. The opportunity to examine both the personal and cultural histories embedded in landscapes that define the character's identity and the meaning of traumatic experience. So what actually, how do you, recognize, how you can recognize, such people. So they carry, the identity, that with them. Very strong identity, right? The Gandhians, live. Or the science inventories, that people who invented, things, they live. They come with an identity, scientists, a physician, a surgeon, like people are coming, right? So they tell, that they define the character's identity and the meaning of the traumatic experience. Right. Now I take, a Kashmiri narrative. So Wahid, Mirza Wahid, whose debut novel is, Collaborator. It was published in 2011. There in the protagonist narrator is a young 19-year-old Kashmiri Gujar, right? A pastoralist man from a border village on the Indian side, who is forced to work for the Indian Army, counting bodies of militants and collecting their identification cards. See that it is not an easy job, right? The job is, to collect, the ID cards from the dead bodies. And the counting, should be done. And he has actually, the 19-year-old, that, man, should count, the bodies and make, the census, right? Survey, like it is a survey. Survey of living community, is different, but survey of people who passed away, right? This is a tough job. So I am telling, a male story, right? So what actually, the pain undergone by a male and a female, that you wait. Okay. So the unnamed young man's, inability to escape. So you cannot escape because the force is there, right? Your life is also in check. 19-year, right? Who is yet to, feel, life. Yet to live, life. Yet to live life. But in that age, right? He has been, offered a job. If it is a good job, fine. But see that the trauma, that is experiencing, the dead bodies and taking, the ID cards. The young man's inability to escape, the unnamed young man's inability to escape this life of collaboration with the occupiers and join his friends on the other side of the border as a freedom fighter. Even as he goes through the heaps of bodies every day, fearing that he will come upon one of his friends, leaves him suspended in an incomprehensible and isolated space. Who are those people, and what type of death? And yes, and you will have to face, that without legs, without hands, without eyes, without head sometimes, and without ID cards even. And the counting, should match with, the ID cards. All these are, something responsibilities, but what type of responsibility it is? Trauma responsibility, right? And another story is, half mother, right? This was by, Shahnaz Bazir. 2014, it was published. Actually, at the beginning, and the end of this novel, the protagonist, Halima, mother, sits endlessly by the window of her house waiting for the return of her disappeared son, who is taken by the Indian army one night. So this is also happening here, but in a different position. That is, we should not discuss, such things. But in the story, the Indian army, that has taken, the son of this mother, disappeared. In between, she runs from pillar to post, attempting, to locate him at detention centers, army camps, and police stations, all to no avail. For her, daily routines are suspended, day and night merge into each other as she waits and searches endlessly. The job, is now assigned is early. The narration begins, the real traumatic experience of a mother who lost her son. And the question comes whether son is alive or not. And what actually the satisfaction is, only in dream, that she gets, the son. The reality, no. The only possibility of reunion with her son is, in a dream, from which she has to perforce wake up only to begin the ritual of waiting again. Is it, something waiting for Godot? Waiting for Godot, right? Waiting for nothing, right? So God has given and then God has taken. Is it so? The military has taken. But waiting continues, right? The mother waits. So this is actually, a mother. One from, the Nagaland narrative, that I take. Now you see, actually research is going towards, where? Earlier, you simply, take the story content and then analyze. But now, your perception, your view, your research, that change, and then you are getting deeper into that research domain, right? And still possibility, is more. So here, that one Nagaland writer, Temzula, these hills called home, challenges. So-called normative crimes, committed by the army against people of Nagaland, the garb of maintaining law and order in the state. So the army is there, to maintain law and order. But what actually, happened, that is different. So one is there, APSPA, that is AIF, yes, PA. That is Armed Forces Special Powers Act, it's one of the dangerous weapons of the state that has created unaccountable, yes, securitized zones. Physical violence, forced arrest, custodial rape, torture, sexual assault become a way of official functioning in states under this AIFSPA, right? So this author's collection of short stories titled These Hills Called Home, Stories from a War Zone, right? I use the word, that border. But here, it is bit replaced, that is a war zone, right? Published in the year 2006. So here in these stories, right, right, Tamsula narrates violence against women in Nagaland. And by extension, that is northeastern India is not simply an offshoot of militancy and militarization, but is deeply embroiled in and betrays the gendered context of the nation state. We get a picture, different, they are safeguarding, the border securities, protecting, the kill and people from sinners. And Naga, you have, the other also, just like Naxalites, here. And they are actually, fighting. It is going on, right? That is a separate story. So this highlights the patriarchal biases inherent in the conception and construction of the official reports, political processes, and the commentaries which aggravate the gendered context of women's lives in myriad ways. So one of the major thrusts of Northeast writers has been to contest the stereotypical images of Northeastern India as either a zone of interaction amongst various tribes, travelers, and natural resources, or a hotbed of insurgent and or terror activities. So this is actually, very, very significant, right? I'm taking, one sample. There are humpty number of people and humpty number of narratives, humpty number of traumatic experiences. One is, entirely different from the other. One is entirely different. And this is actually taken to the mind, right? Where recollection comes and then haunting people, right? Particularly women. Haunting people in the entire span of life, right? Life and death or death in life. Every day is something, like every day is a day, for their life. Are they secured? We think, they are secured. Far away, right? We are keeping, far away, the distance, right? And one more, that last song, the story is titled as Last Song, is a testimony to an unending series of rape and torture that women are subjected to by the state machinery during the troubled moments of heightened political rebellion. Right. So this is actually based on, Ainam incident, historical something, right? This last song exposes how sexual violence is the worst form of retributive action undertaken by the uniformed representatives to shame and emasculate communities. This is real, right? At times, the author appears and indulges, in conversation like, colloquial narration, is also there. As if, two people are conversing each other, presenting, the pain. Or it is bit dramatized, like, right, where characters, on stage and then they are actually presenting live presentation. Here, the rape is committed on one character, Apanyo, and her mother. And her mother, who highlights how lawlessness has become a role in Nagaland. And poor people's claim to territory, liberty, and order is rendered suspect. So her determination, Apanyo's, determination to sing in the face of violence. See? She has undergone something, a pain, and it is something, the rape, right? And now she wants to sing, that in the face of violence, challenges the state's attempt. And this is something, the claim. Attempt to gag, the voice of poor and marginalized sections of society. Representing, the entire tribal society, tribal situation. And in Nagaland, this is not one apanya, there are empty number of apanyas. Actually, directly, she gets into that violent zone and then starts singing, like facing, them. Earlier, in Shashi Deshpande's situation, Shashi Deshpande's writings, you come across women, who are silenced, undergoing pain, but they are not telling, anything out. But today, things have changed. Research is also changing. You try to locate, women, who are actually emerging, and the power, is now established. It is not, men alone establishing power, but women are also, establishing power. They know what power is. So power theory, right? They know what is power. So the rape cases filled in this region reveals how women's everyday mobility, choice of work, employment activities inside and outside home have been dominated by an actual fear of rape. They are coming out, but are they safe? Because the actual fear of rape, by armed forces and law enforcement, structures, are always there. So it is above their head? No. Actually, it is targeted to the entire structure, women. It is not above the head. It takes, the life over, right? But it is not so. It's not, they're taking, the life. It is taking, the other. So that I mean by it. It's taking the other within double quotes, right? The body, right? And the body, is actually uh, is after receiving it, taking the external force, to the mind. So it becomes, a recurring thing. The entire life, that psychologically, right? Psychologically, physically, they undergo, such things. So now modern trends, right? The main progress in modern Indian literature has been, the augmentation of feminist centered, approach. Doesn't mean, that men are not narrator. They are also, right? Already there, but this dimension is joining now. Feminist centered, approach. Writers, especially women writers, question sincerely and scientifically. They started, questioning sincerely and scientifically, and sometimes refuse long established interpretations of women's role and position in society. See, the last part, is important. Sometimes refuse long established interpretations of women's role and position in society. They climb. They are climbing, slowly, but genuine one, right? Genuine one. And relationship between man and woman. So earlier, how it was, and now how it is. So the psych, human state, and quality of life. And you have one more interesting, is corporate settings. College and corporate settings. Chetan Bhagat and others. He also talked something about, the night shift people, right? People who are working in the night. What type of pains, that they are undergoing there in corporate situation. That is also is becoming, a fine research. It's not, that we should take, the layers, available to our eyes, quick. But we as researchers look in, something different. You know that the different, that doesn't come that quick to your eyes. And you need to, take a risk like. The grassroots details of the sociological, cultural, economic, and political history of India, subaltern consciousness, the techniques of hybrid language, magic realism, prepared with native themes, history, society, and other things. The majority of the novels depict the psychological suffering of the frustrated housewives. This subject matter has often been considered superficial compared to the depiction of repressed and oppressed lives of women of the lower classes. See, we look up in all ways. We see, something superficiality, right? But there are people, who are at the other side, the lower classes of women. What is it? So the Northeastern writers, now you know that it is Northeastern writers writing in English. So earlier it was in their own language. Those were translated. So on translations or, many. Even Mageshwata Devi, translated by writer, that is Gayatri Spivak. Right. Translated, Gayatri Spivak translated Mageshwata Devi's writings. Translations are many. Those translations should also be, dealt for research, because they also support, the global perception. So it is happening here. Doesn't mean, this. I told you something about, female genital mutilation. In African countries, you come across many. And community-wise, that if you see, that in India, that was very much, in existence with the Muslim community, particularly, the North. Where they started long and they have been, indulging in this. It is not a secret. 1,000 years of secret, now coming to the eyes of the people. So such is actually narrated. And I told you, that the Northeastern writings, that are coming now, and an attempt, that the history of Northeastern writings, is now going on, a research. So you can take, the contemporary writers like Anita Desai, Manju Kapoor, Sachi Deshpande, Shobhadi, Jumba Lagari, Kamala Markandeya, Jobala, Krishna Uday Shankar, Banerjee Chitra, Arundhati Roy. They have challenged the society for metamorphosis of women's status. That is there at one stage. That is basic, that I can say. But beyond that, that the gender, they dealt. There is some more. There are some more. An outstanding and major development in modern Indian writing is the growth of a feminist or woman-centered approach, which seeks to project and interpret experience from the viewpoint of a feminine consciousness and sensibility. Anyone can do it. It's not, that women alone should do it. But when it is genuine, your consciousness, right, and your sensibility, irrespective of gender, will certainly work out for a very good and serious research in the years to come. And many Indian women novelists, they have explored the subjectivity, female subjectivity, in order to establish an identity. The theme is from childhood to womanhood, developed society, respecting women in gender. So the image of an Indian woman in fiction has undergone a change during the last 4 or 5 decades. The writers, they have moved away from traditional portrayals of enduring, self-sacrificing women towards conflicts. But they are all now breaking it. Conflict is there, but how to overcome, that conflict. And they all search for identity and no longer characterized and defined simply in terms of their victim status. There won't be any more victims. They are all, that history setters, right? They are all making, every other understand, their identity and their ideology and their status. So a major preoccupation in recent Indian women's writing has been a delineation of inner self and subtle interpersonal relationships, right? So beautiful novels, dealing with women, that are casually walking into the zones, that they create and they establish and they survive. They are making, real differences. So when that is one perception. So I love to talk here, one more interesting area of research that is seriously going on is food culture, right? So passing references were made 2 decades back. Visit of goes to Middle East. Visit of Kren Desai to US, to countries where they experience that culture, and they write about that in their writings. So food culture is something interesting. The chefs are now turning into writers, narrators. I'm talking about novels. The great chefs that they are actually getting into novel writing, Indian writing in English. They are writing about that food culture, right? So it is something emerging one. I told you, uh, medicine narratives. I mean, one professor there in NIT who is doing serious work on it, medicine narratives. So you have what is it called? Beautiful narratives, dealing with. I mean, the picture narratives are also there. Graphic, yes, graphic narratives are also there, and such narratives, would certainly make everyone raise their brows and getting into such narratives for not pleasure, but real research. Supporting evidences, supporting documents, that you may claim, you may ask for. There are, or else, that we can create, sources for young researchers who are going to join, in future, right? So this female genital mutilation, that it is not new, right? So far it was a secret, and now it is coming to our eyes. I told you, that the Thani, opened our eyes about gay relationship, lesbian relationship, third gender. He was criticized, and now that everything is normal. Well, it is not an acceptance, but we learned, we understood that this is not new. Okay, but this genital mutilation, it should be humble wishes, something that women should not be given, that task. Right? And they are writers, they all turned writers. Those who have undergone, this female genital mutilation, cutting, they all turn, writers. So from victim to settings, history settings. So they are actually, moving towards a new path. And those path, is becoming untrodden path for us, right? So we can choose, that between two roads, Frostian roads, the road not taken. So we take, something, the harsh one, right? The path, that created by the victims, early victims, becoming now history setters. These women's writings may be taken, for, or can be taken, or should be taken for a further serious research, genuine research. I thank, organizers for giving me a nice opportunity to share my views on this area. It is not, that limited, that I have given, 3 just. There are empty number. It is especially to Indian writing in English, but zone is, something wide, right? There is no limit. Globe, becomes small, but the happenings, there in the globe are, something large. You should understand what is happening, the other side, getting close. So COVID situation has given a chance for me, to meet people from the entire nation, maybe from the entire globe. I'm not sure about it, but it has really, worked well. It has worked well. Earlier, there was, a difference of opinion in this. How come, that is possible? No, it is possible, right? So my view is, this limited. Maybe you have bigger views. Happy to listen to you. Happy to hear you. Happy to learn from you. That's what I told you in the beginning. I learned from my scholar children. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Batmanavan and team, for
Thank
making
you.
this possible.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the wonderful session, sir. Now we shall wait for some questions, sir, from the participants. Kasi?
Sir? Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. It was a wonderful presentation, sir.
Thank
So,
you.
dear
Thank you.
participants, if you have any questions and any clarification, please ask to unmute your audio and video. Here.
Dear participants, if you have any questions, no, you can either unmute your mic and you can ask, or post it in the chat box, please.
Or they can send, to my mail ID so that I can respond.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. I'll be happy to do it, because I take my own time and then giving it in writing,
That's it, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Let us wait for one or two questions.
Pleasure doing.
Wait.
Kasi?
Sir,
So there are some questions, Kasi.
sir, few of them asking with the thought box. Shall I read, sir?
Yeah, please.
Sir,
One question, that I was able to, look into is Kiran Desai's, writings. So the food culture, that I referred, So she visited many countries. Anita Desai's daughter, she visited many countries where she experienced, the idea of food, that the Indian food is, entirely different from the continental situation where the inheritance of loss, that she referred a lot on this area, right? So when someone, is taking, a research on the food culture, there is a possibility, even in Indian writing in English, you do have, many, the spices. Chitra Banaji Divakarane has Mistress of Spices, and you have Kaveri and Ambition, has written about it. And the Spice World, is there. There are innumerable writings, dealing with food culture, apart from, Kiran Desai. And Amitav Ghosh, that upon visiting Middle East countries, and he has written, about, this culture, food culture, right? Food culture. What next question, right?
sir, another question from the, can you give some writer's name and works on pictures narrative?
Graphic narratives.
Graphic.
Yes, about,
Another,
Ambedkar. About Ambedkar, that there is a beautiful graphic novel named, Ramayana. So it is about, Ambedkar, and where you come across, about women also. That concept, is dealt. And there are graphic narratives. Khari is, a fine novel, graphic novel, Khari, wherein, that you come across, that the lady being, tortured. And it is actually, that graphic novels, that you have to, read, zigzag, like. And the first, that doesn't come, there in the beginning, left side, like either it may start, from the bottom and it goes to the left corner, and then you'll have to come to the right corner, like. So graphic narrative is an interesting area, but people have already started working on that. And not much, that are available on the graphic narratives, but there are writings. interesting, that if you send, your mail ID, to my mail ID, hello, send a simple message. I'll attach, all those graphic novels. I'll be able to do it, certainly. I promise I'll do it.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, another question, sir. Sir, your title presentation is beyond gender. So, how can it be connected with the folk writing? Can you name what's on such writing to explore? It's a question from Mahesh.
Yes, folk studies, folk literature. Folk literature, is something connected with, oral. One Mr. Nammalwar has conducted, a serious research, on this area. And he has written, 2 huge volumes, running more than 1,800 pages. This can be, easily connected because, in folk literatures, that you get, much authentic, information. Comparing, this real writings, the novels, wherein, the perception of the author also, novelist also joins. But in folk literature, whatever, comes from the characters involved or the presenters involved, those are all, something authentic sources, authentic information. I say, that the gender differences, that are very seriously, dealt in folk studies, right? So in JNU, the folk studies, department, it's separately running, wherein, that you can contact, people over, the net, right? Or by writing to them, that you can get, the contacts, that easy. I say, that beyond gender, that, yes, I told you, the graphic writings. I might have forgotten, I'm sorry, that folk studies, seriously help people, to understand more about, this gender. And beyond gender, and they speak, that instead of writing, that they speak, that more, right? Instead of writing, that the speaking, gives, much support. And the voice, that it becomes, the real one. Even here in the real novels or short stories, where you find, that voices, that are, yes, in the form of words, but there, the sound, is involved, right? It becomes more authentic, and the emotion also, is shared. The feelings are also shared, right? So Valal are saying, that if you are from Tamil, I can say, that Vadi Vera Kandavadalam Vadine, the moment, you come across this line, that you feel, a bit unhappy, inside, right? Vadi Pyre, replace, Pyre with, the people, right? The plants, with the people. All those, are suffering, when you look at people who are suffering, that you become really worried. COVID, is taking, the life that quick. And people now, that are standard, that they don't know what to do with people, who passed away, right? They don't even, come back, home from the hospital. Straight away, to burial spaces, graves, they are going. See that this is something like. So in oral presentation, that oral literature, oral studies, that gender studies, worth doing, that are good.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question, sir. Has there been research on psychoanalytic reading of Indian texts with focus on gender? If yes, then which text
Gender is, yes. Gender, is well connected. When you take, trauma, that when you take, pain, or when you take, this oppression or something like, that you have to consult. I used, that Freud, the quotation, that I used. Very much, that is possible, right? This psychosis, that psychoanalysis possible. And but when trauma, is taken, this becomes, less significant. It should not, that bit variable, is there between these two things, right? So pain and then trauma and then this psychology, that psychoanalytic study, both are, entirely different in a bit. There are differences, but you'll have to make it, sure that you depend one on this psychoanalytic therapy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kasi, we can.
Sir,
Yes,
last
yes.
question, sir. Sir, is ecofeminism concept would be connected with any folk studies? The question is from Sivaranjini.
Folk studies, ecofeminism, folk, studies again, see, I told you, that Northeast, has contributed a lot, something on folk studies. So when they speak, that what comes first, that nature comes. Even, they forget their own life pains, right? They speak more about, the nature. All those writings, when you read, one of these texts, that I cited, what is available more is, the ecology. So they can't be, separated, the tribal situation, the folk studies, they can't, distinct, keep, distant from, nature. They live with that situation. Even they get rid of, modernism, postmodernism or post-postmodernism, things. They simply, lead their life, living there, even without, what is it called, huts, they simply bear, sleep, beneath the tree and then take rest and then work. That was the situation, that ecofeminism, can be applied. Pain is also there, right? Oppression is also there. Can be done. Good number of theses, already worked on this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir, for your response to all these questions, sir. Good afternoon to good afternoon to all. So it was a promised afternoon because of the fears of the speakers. Sir, you have to enlighten us with the quotidians of words and statements. Thank you, sir, for the awesome discourse. So I would like to thank our today's speaker, Dr. G. Baskaran, sir, for spending a valued time with us. Thank you, sir. And on behalf of the organizing committee and at behalf of the Department of English and Foreign Languages. So finally, I thank our active listeners. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you so much. Namaskar, and thank you, Padmanabhan. Thank you, Kasirajan, and thank you, David, for making this a grand success.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Batu?
Sir.
Batu, I need, a certificate, that you can send, through.
Sure, sir. We'll be sending you.
Okay.
By tomorrow. Yes.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, sir.